What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another off-season edition episode of Panther Source Live. And I've got a special guest tonight. We're going to be knocking out all this free agent frenzy stuff with the Carolina Panthers. I guess we can put frenzy in quotations like I did in the title here because it hasn't been too terribly crazy. It ain't like we had all the money in the world to spend, like, say, I don't know, the Cleveland Browns. But like I said, I got a special guest with me tonight. I've had him on before. I had him on about every offseason, really. We go live here and break down the rebuilding of the team, if you will. Erik Sommers from Cat Scratch Reader. Erik, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, Trip. Doing good, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm seeing some more turnover here in Pantherland. Getting young, man. Getting young on the really all around. I mean, considering where we were at last 2 years, I guess.
Yeah, in a hurry. Young in a big hurry. If we could put this into a pill and sell it, we'd be billionaires. Because, man, if you're over 30, you basically don't exist on this roster anymore at this point. We went from being one of the oldest teams in the NFL, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I've got to assume we've dropped the top 10 youngest by now.
Yeah, I saw, I think, who was it? Jeremy Igo was up there tweeting about, like, they've dropped by 28 years or something. And somebody actually appeared to take that really serious on Twitter. And if you're a follower of Igo, you cannot do that.
No. He's a good photojournalist, but I'm not a big fan of his takes or his and sometimes his humor. But yeah, he's been doing it for a long time, so credit to him.
Yeah, and speaking of free agent frenzy, really around the NFL, just in general, to start with, things got heated up. You know, we didn't go live at all last week because we were just kind of letting things play out, if you will. But around the league, man, people getting paid this year. I was actually kind of glad. Obviously, you know, the Panthers signed Eric Reid early, which turned out to be a big thing because these safeties this year are getting paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
Landon Collins.
Happy to see them do that. You know, get him. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get guys that you like locked in, and I think Eric Reid playing at next year. Hopefully, we draft a decent free safety or we acquire one soon. I think in his natural position and with a better pass rush, we're really going to see him thrive. So I think it was the right idea to go ahead and get him locked up before free agency.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, then you got, you know, guys around here like Landon Collins getting paid. You know, the big number is $84 million. Now, a lot of that, they have an out after 2 years. And that's the thing about contracts in general. People look at, you know, the grand sum of money, and a lot, like, it inflated huge this year. I've been kind of shocked, honestly. But like I said before, there's a lot of fluff in some of that. Landon Collins' number being $84 million is huge, but they have an out after 2 years potentially if they wanted to use that. I think his first year is like $4 million on the books or something for his first year.
They keep and the trend now, of course, is to try to, for these teams that don't have a ton of space, unless you're a team like the Browns or the Raiders, get them in there that first year on a cheap deal where maybe they just get guaranteed money and nothing else. But then ramp them up in the middle so they have a reason to do fairly well. And then I feel like most of these free agents never see the end of their contracts anymore, just because at the end they're so darn expensive. You almost have to take a dead money hit. And you know, historically, the Panthers aren't a big player in free agency, especially the first week. And I think that's generally the correct philosophy. We've never really had a ton of cap space where we could get into these mammoth contracts because we're like, oh, we got plenty of money now. We don't have to worry about it. But down the line, it's usually not the appropriate response because we've been good about keeping our dead cap money number low over the years in Carolina. Other teams will carry 10, 20, sometimes as much as 30 to 40 million in dead cap. Over the last 10 years, we've certainly been under 15, and recently with the leftovers from Gettleman, less than 5. I think this year was only 2.
Yeah.
So Matt Khalil, of course.
Oh, yeah, the good old Matt Khalil story. And before we jump on him, you know, one of the guys that ended up – actually, let's go ahead and dive into that. Okay. We kind of brought this up, and I know it's a hot topic around Carolina Panthers fandom right now. Panthers finally did release Matt Khalil. Obviously, they're taking a hit this year, and they also have to pay him next year. That's why there was some, you know, between people like us and, you know, some other people around Twitter I know we were talking with, there was some beef between whether we should keep him because we're going to have to pay him anyway, and it's better to have him for depth, if anything, or should we just go ahead and cut the ties, be done with it, let's move on from this era, and that's ultimately what they ended up doing. Where are you at on this, Eric? I know you I think you're kind of on the other side of the fence from where I'm at, but I can understand a little bit of both sides here.
Yeah, so here's my thing with it. Now, obviously, the team could very well know things that we don't. For all you and I know, Matt Khalil's knee injury is a chronic thing that he still hasn't fully recovered from. There is no chance of him playing this season, so you might as well cut him now and save yourself $1 million. Because quite frankly, that's really all the difference was between cutting him right now or waiting until June 1st was that $1 million. Now, obviously, cutting him before June 1st saves you another $6 million, but the problem is you still have to pay what's remaining of his guaranteed salary, and you can only spread that out over 2 years. So what I would say to people is I know many people hate Matt Khalil. And many people just flat out hate the guy. And I would ask you, first and foremost, I think it's worth his contract alone just to keep his wife in state, because if you haven't seen his wife, my God,
I have not.
Good-looking woman. That is, you should look up Matt Khalil's wife. He has done he is a way better husband than he is a left tackle. Let's put it that way. But even when you take into account his not so greatness at a left tackle, he would still be near the top of the heap when you're talking about a depth guy, when you're talking about a backup left tackle. No, if you're talking about, let's look at the 32 people starting at left tackle in the NFL and let's rank them. Matt Khalil's probably sitting down in the bottom 5, almost certainly.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're talking about would I like to have a bottom 5 but still starting left tackle as my depth, I would say what better are you going to do for $7 million? I mean,
with what people are getting paid out there right now at the offensive tackle position.
Yeah, I mean, it's just obscene what they're getting paid, and even a right tackle is going to cost you about that much, and that's not necessarily for a starter. We got a sweetheart deal with Darryl Williams because he wants to increase his value down the line, and we're still having to pay him somewhere between $6 and $7 million. Yeah. So there's just not the talent available. And not to say that Matt Khalil's your ideal starter at left tackle, but he's certainly an ideal backup if he's healthy. So my question is, yeah, we get $7.5 million back once June 1st hits, but that money doesn't help us sign anybody right now. And by the time that date hits, the only thing that's going to be sitting out there are guys like Chris Clark, which you're going to sign just above the veteran minimum to play the position as an emergency measure. You're not still trying to acquire a starter at that point.
Yeah.
Or even really quality depth. You're talking about emergency. All our guys are hurt. We need somebody, which is exactly what it was for us last season when we signed Clark. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, Clark did pretty well, and for a lot less money than Matt Khalil." I'm here to tell you that that's false. I'm here to tell you that that's confirmation bias. Yes, he didn't. He wasn't a complete disaster, but he was pretty darn bad. The only reason that we looked at him and said, "Oh, he's doing a pretty good job," is because he was so darn cheap. Guys.
And he came off the couch after sitting there for months.
Precisely. We gave him a lot of credit for being inactive until the day we needed him. And then when we signed him, we were like, "Oh, he's only making a couple $100,000 per game. This is acceptable." But I don't think Cam Newton's shoulder would tell you it was acceptable. So,
or Kyle Allen or Taylor Heineke or
no, nobody, because clearly we were doing great.
Christian McCaffrey almost played quarterback in the Saints game.
Yeah. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. So what I'm telling you, even if we do draft somebody, let's say we even spend our first round pick on a left tackle, you're still talking about an unknown rookie. Even if he's a really talented guy, he's almost certainly not going to be able to step in and play at quality backup level by week 1. It's just a huge gap between what you deal with in college and what you do in the NFL. So even if you start Taylor Moton at left tackle, and he's your primary backup, he'd probably walk in and be maybe just a smidge better than Chris Clark. It's just not very often that you draft a guy who can step into the NFL and start at left tackle. They usually spend some time at right tackle and ease their way into left tackle.
And yeah, I'm completely on the train of keeping Moton at right tackle. I mean, if we move him to left, like, I get it, and I think, like you said, I don't think he's going to excel there, obviously, as he would at right tackle. I completely agree with the switching thing. I think you should keep Moton. Now, the thing about Matt Khalil, by the way, I just looked up his wife, and she is pretty hot.
Yeah, she's very, very hot.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked.
Did you blame the guy for wanting to spend more time on the couch, less time on the field?
No. And that's the other thing. I mean, we don't know that he's still even 100%, and that might be part of the reason, like you said, we don't know what's going on inside that locker room and at the trainer's table or whatnot. But he might not be still 100%. But I was on the train of saying, look, it's time to cut ties with this guy. Let's just move on from it. It was a bad contract from the get-go, which we all knew. And by the way, I will stand firm in my statement that DG keeps getting a lot of flack for this deal. And I'm telling you, I don't think it was him. That is not a DG move at all. I mean, well, it looks like it is this year. But back then, with what he was trying to put together and build with scraps, that kind of contract, especially considering it was Ryan Khalil's brother, just didn't seem like a very Dave Gettleman move. I still think JR had a big influence on that whole deal. But
very possible.
Aside from that, I am on the train of, and apparently I guess they were too, and they might know more, of just moving on from it. And I know at this point we have to figure they're still going to hit offensive tackle somewhere in the draft. They've been hitting the trenches on both sides really at this point, offense and defense, trying to fix this thing and trying to get they've talked about it all offseason about getting Cam protection. He's had the shoulder injury. They're really starting to see it now maybe, and I'm really hoping they use some of those early picks to go offensive tackle, particularly left tackle. And I'm not, getting Darryl Williams could be a good deal because if he comes back healthy, I mean, he wasn't great as, some grades out there, not saying any names, Pro Football Focus, will make him sound. But he is definitely not the worst out there either. It's kind of like you said with Matt Khalil. I mean, for what guys are getting paid, that $7 million could be relatively cheap to have him with experience if he was healthy. So yeah, I get that side. But I personally – and if they don't hit in the draft, then you might be screwed anyway. So
yeah. So here's my thing with Darryl Williams. I mean, and I'll get into it. I'd like to talk a little bit more about tackle in the NFL in general while I say this. But Darryl Williams, he graded out, like you said, really well by the people over at PFF, who certainly, I'm sure, watched every single one of his snaps.
Oh, yeah.
He did well in Mike Shula's offense when we were very much always keeping a tight end tight in the formation. Now, Darryl Williams is an excellent blocker once he gets his hands on you. But his lateral speed is not that impressive.
Say run blocking.
Yeah, so run blocking, outstanding, because nobody's coming at him. He gets his mitts on you, and he'll maul you to death, and that'll be fine. Pass blocking, when there's somebody, even if the tight end doesn't chip him, just by giving that pass rusher less room to work with, Darryl Williams was an excellent pass blocker. But when you put him on an island against the left defensive end, which is generally, honestly, the team's best defensive end nowadays, he struggled because he's not that fast laterally. He really needs somebody to throw a chip into one of these speed rusher types, or else they're going to get by him. I watched, after we re-signed him, me and one of our other writers, Billy Marshall, looked back through some of his clips from 2017. It was very apparent when we left him alone, there were problems. When we even threw the slightest chip, no problems. So the difference between Mike Shula and Norv Turner doesn't bring the tight end in tight as much as Mike Shula did. He'd much rather go three wide or at least have the tight end out in space as opposed to right there on the line of scrimmage. So it's either going to take Norv Turner evolving, which he proved last year that he can, to his credit, or it's going to take Darryl Williams improving after two major injuries in one season. That's why I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And getting into a greater talk about what offensive tackle is in the NFL, because I had some people ask me this after Darryl Williams got re-signed. Effectively, there's not much difference between a left tackle and a right tackle in today's NFL, because passing the football has become such an important part of the game as opposed to running it, and because defenses often put their best pass rusher at left defensive end these days matched up against the right tackle. The right tackle has to be just as capable of pass blocking as the left. Honestly, the only reason that the left tackle gets paid more is because the risk of injury to the quarterback coming off the blind side is greater than coming off the right side. But the numbers have bore out that the risk of turnovers are higher off the right side when the quarterback can see it coming. So practically, you need two tackles that can both quote-unquote play LT. You just put your best tackle at left tackle and you put your second best tackle at right tackle, where the worst that can happen is you turn the ball over as opposed to somebody's spine getting snapped in half.
Yeah, so, and that's another thing too. You know, they talked about, because obviously the thing was when Darryl Williams got signed is everybody's like, he's right tackle, they're going to move Moten, what are we going to do? And then some people are like, well, we need to move Moten to the left tackle because we're going to get rid of Khalil, and Moten's better than Khalil, and you know, yada yada, you know the story. But there's also been talk of him playing potentially guard on left guard. Anyway, obviously he's not taking Trey Turner's spot. But there's also been talk that it's a possibility he could play left guard, which would be better, obviously, because he would also have help on each side. But he's also, like we mentioned, he appears to be a better run blocker, and that would probably excel there and fit him better and get more money out of him, or get money's worth out of him this coming year. But like I said, I mean, I feel pretty confident they're going to go offensive line at some point in this draft. I mean, I think we all agree there. It's going to be a matter of when. First round, I don't know. It's hard to tell with what they've done in free agent. I still think they might go edge in the first round, regardless of what we all might want. I know many of us want edge. And personally, if it's defense, if it's edge or offensive line, I can live with either one of those. If you go out there, I know today Billy Marshall put out there about somebody saying they were going to draft a QB at 16.
Oh, God.
And look, I understand if something is wrong, if something is that wrong with Cam that they're not talking about in Cam's line on all his YouTube videos about, okay, you could make a very small semblance of a point, but I would be highly upset because it's like Billy said, and I've said this all along, and I think we said this on the show last year, Eric, is if Cam Newton goes down, it doesn't matter who's behind him. I don't care. That's why everybody's like, oh, we need to get a veteran backup and this and that. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, if we go out there and get a solid veteran backup, we say a Josh, Josh McCown or Ryan Fitzpatrick or whatever. If Cam Newton goes down, this offense is tailored to Cam Newton. They could try to make adjustments, but at that point, I'm counting the season as a loss, unfortunately. And some people might not like to hear that. I'm still going to pull for my team, obviously, but that's just how it is. Like, that's my reality and my mindset in it. So a QB in the first round would be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it would be, and I think I agree with you. If you pick a quarterback in the first round this draft, you are basically spelling it out that Cam Newton is never going to be the same. We are thinking about moving on.
Right.
I would be shocked if that's the case. I would be absolutely beyond floored if that were the case. I just can't possibly see that happening.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I don't see that happening. And I was beating the drum pretty hard for Darryl Williams at left guard after the signing happened. But that was until they released Matt Khalil. Right now, as the roster stands right now, obviously it could change. I know we brought in Bushrod from the Saints for a visit, and he left without a contract, but we may be waiting for a call back from him. Who knows? As the roster stands right now, though, you absolutely have to put Moten at left tackle and Williams at right tackle. But if you get another capable right tackle in, that's not necessarily the case. When I look at Darryl Williams, I see Travell Wharton. I mean, honest to God, like everything from his build to his playing style, that man is Travell Wharton. And Travell Wharton was a damn good left guard for us. Darryl Williams fits that mold the exact same way that Wharton did. Not great out in space because, we did try Wharton at right tackle for a while. It didn't go so well. He was kind of our reserve swing tackle whenever it, emergencies hit. But as soon as we put him at left guard, he was an absolute beast of a player for us. And that's what I see Williams excelling at. Let's not force him to try to beat somebody to the edge. Let's just put him in a position where he knows he's going to get his hands on a guy, and then he can just maul them from there. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with the remaining of free agency and what they acquire in the draft.
Yeah, and then right beside them, we haven't even hit on them yet, but I thought this was and I think collectively everybody agreed, a big signing, and Matt Paradis.
Yes.
He gave us hopefully a couple tickets to Paradis, but if he comes back healthy, I saw a few people when I posted this talk about his injury and this and that, and yes, that's true. But the deal we got him on, if he comes back healthy, and I've been keeping a close eye on everybody in Denver, beat writers and diehard fans and whatnot, and a lot of them did not want Paradis going anywhere after that injury.
No way. I mean, when he is on the field, he is a top 3 center in the NFL.
Yep.
I mean, for us to get him on the deal we got him for is absolutely outstanding.
Stoked.
No, I'm beyond stoked. I mean, that's an upgrade over prime Ryan Khalil when he is on the field. And I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that he won't be. Obviously, it'll suck if he isn't, or if he's just not the same. In which case, if he's not the same, and for some reason, then you can't really blame Marty. It's still not that bad of a deal. Honestly, I couldn't find one thing wrong with that signing. I thought it was a fantastic signing, and it prevents us from having to pick a center in the draft completely. So I was really happy about that.
And we can all make fun puns all season, fun graphics all season. It's going to be I see T-shirts coming out. It's going to be great. I'm going to put it on a koozie.
It's going to be fantastic.
Fun. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, I think that's easily the best signing of the offseason, without a doubt, to me. And it was a surprise signing. It's not getting the attention it deserves just because Antonio Brown, OBJ, and all that craziness happened at the same time. But it's an excellent signing, a good value signing, and it absolutely fills a need with a better quality player than the one we had before. No offense to Ryan Khalil, who was amazing in his prime, but he hasn't been the realest Ryan Khalil in at least 3 years.
I've said it all. I mean, we've been saying it for years, but this season it was like a point of emphasis. Just get my man Cam some help on the offensive line. Just finally, please do it.
Yes.
Just do it now, please. And they're doing it. They're working on it. I hope they go into the draft and continue to hit it. We'll see what transpires there. But another speaking of former players earlier, Devin Funchess signing with the Colts, $13 million deal. I think we all kind of knew when they pulled him in the last game, or he was a healthy scratch in the last game. He was gone. He wasn't coming back. So kind of a good land for him, though. I mean, I don't have anything against Funchess. I was ready to move on from him. I agree with the move, especially considering the deal he was getting and what wide receivers are getting paid. But I think this could actually be a good move for him. And I'm just going to tell I say it. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a good year this year. He's got T.Y. Hilton opposite him. Andrew Luck's got a hell of an offensive line now after last season. They've kind of built that team back up. So I mean, he could have a pretty good season with them this coming year. So best of luck to him, as long as he doesn't trash talk my quarterback like another former wide receiver did. Yeah. Then we're coming for you.
No, I at first I was like, why would you, as such a young player, why would you only sign a 1-year deal in the first couple of days of free agency? But the more I thought about it, I think it's actually the smart move for him. Now, provided he doesn't get hurt, he's taking that gamble. If he doesn't get hurt, I don't see any way that he's not a 1,000-yard receiver for the Colts next year. Well, I should say provided he doesn't get hurt and provided Andrew Luck doesn't get hurt.
Woo. 1,000 yards. You heard it here first, people.
Oh, yeah. I can guarantee you they threw the ball more than anybody else in the NFL, and it's been that way for years.
Yeah.
Just by the simple existence of him being on the field, he is guaranteed, and I say this without any hesitation, he's guaranteed 100 targets next year. Now, What he does with those 100 targets is up to him, and hopefully he learns not to drop the football, especially in the red zone.
Well, they got Ebron too, don't they?
Well, they've got Ebron, they've got
T.Y.
Hilton,
Hilton. Yes, I
they've
mean
got
he should
Marlon
he
Mack,
should be
who's
able
a
to get.
halfway decent receiving back. I mean, there
Yeah,
are mouths to feed, but those mouths always get fed in
yeah.
Indianapolis.
So I'm saying
So,
it should open up things for him as well. So or help
oh
at
yeah,
least.
with him not having to be featured, and as much as they throw the ball, I think provided he has a healthy season, along with Andrew Luck having a healthy season, almost guaranteed to have 1,000 yards. Now, I don't know what his yards per catch are going to be, and I don't know what his drop percentage is going to be if his time in North Carolina was any indication. But, I think just based on the amount of volume they can offer, he'll be 1,000-yard wide receiver. Then he can sign his multi-year deal. So it's not the worst idea in the world. He's just taking a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people. DK Metcalfe had a crazy combine for his size in some areas, and I know there's a lot of hype around him right now. But I'm not on the first round for DK Metcalf, especially after that 3-cone. Oof, that doesn't
we
typically.
can't afford it. I mean, there's not a wide receiver in this draft, in my opinion, that is worth drafting over any of our needs. I don't see a special player in this draft at wide receiver. And we just have so many other needs. We can't afford to do it.
And I've seen, and Max Henson shared something where they had like 2 receivers mocked to Carolina in the first round this past week, and I'm like, what do y'all? This is clear y'all don't keep up with us, right?
Yeah, I mean, what planet are you guys on? I mean, we absolutely must draft both an offensive tackle and a defensive end, probably in the first 2 rounds of the draft.
And we've got to hit on them. That's the other thing. Just because you draft one doesn't mean you're going to hit. So it's nice if you can free up an extra pick or two somewhere where you can pick 2 of one position, potentially, one early and one deep that you like. So, I mean, it's going to be something to watch.
My feelings to see all hog mollies all the way across, man. Nope. Give me all the linemen and give me all the defensive ends. Just load me up. I'll figure out something at safety, but load me up on the fat guys this year.
Yeah, and speaking of, not a fat guy, but speaking of the trenches, and, it's been confirmed Carolina is going to more of the 3-man front, 3-4, style of defense and schemes. Signed defensive end linebacker Bruce Irvin Tuesday to a 1-year deal. This is somebody that a lot of Carolina fans, including myself, would have liked to seen when he came available last. I think it was early November last year, and he signed with Atlanta. We get him now, and as soon as this signing came across the board, and I think it was already known, but this pretty much insinuated, and he said it himself in the presser, I came here because I know the system they're going to be running this season, and I wanted to go somewhere. I don't have time at my age to be trying to learn another system. I want to come in here and do what I know how to do, and that's what they're going to give me. And I don't think he's going to be – this isn't like a big, flashy signing. I don't think he's going to come out here and give us 12 sacks. He's not going to be Bruce Irvin from Seattle necessarily, but it's a great depth rotational piece, I think. And I'm sure I haven't seen the contract numbers aren't out, I don't think yet. But I'm sure he was very affordable, and that was another big reason. So I like this move.
We know it's $5 million. We don't know how it's distributed, but we know it's $5 million at this point. I think with maybe another $1 million in incentives. But no, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's a smart move. I think moving to a multiple look defense is a smart move. I think they've seen the benefits of moving to a versatile offense. So now they're like, well, maybe we should challenge our preconceived notions about the 4-3 defense and see what we can do defensively to switch things up. I think a very good strategy in the modern NFL is to attack the opposing player's mind. Make them honor as many things as they possibly can whenever you put your 11 guys on the field.
Absolutely.
We used it to deadly perfection with Christian McCaffrey, and now we're going to try to use it on defense. We're going to make them study more tape than they may be able to retain and hopefully make them mess up. I've always been a fan of the 3-4 defense over the 4-3, but I think it's even better if you can mix it up. Honestly, the modern NFL, when you're talking about a 3-4 versus 4-3, you're really talking about a 4-2-5 versus a 3-3-5, because you're gonna have 5 DBs out there.
I was going to say you're more nickel based stuff too as well. Yep.
You're definitely more nickel based, so you're looking at a hybrid defense anyway. Just when you go base, when 4-3 is your base, you're shoehorned into always putting 4 linemen out there, and I think that's a mistake. I really think that going base 3-4, you get that 3-3-5 option, or you get a 3-2-6 that's more natural. I just think it's more geared toward the modern game. So I'm happy to see a little bit of an evolution in thinking defensively as well as what we've seen offensively. It gives me some hope for old Ron Rivera.
Yeah. Well, I'm just a big fan of him taking over the play call. Like, I mean, you saw the difference it made. I mean, like at the end of last season, I mean, you could tell when he took back over, maybe it was just a little bit too much for Eric Washington. I was fine. I was on the train of keeping him in-house for the defensive line because he has done wonders in that area, in that front seven. But Ron Rivera taking back over and now keeping, I was very happy to see. It's a shame it took the playoffs going pretty much away and his job being on the line to do so. But it's done now. I hope he keeps it that way, and I hope he keeps up. And who knows, we might be seeing that first-round draft pick, being another defensive end edge guy. I know a lot of people are on that Farrell train right now.
And I could go either way on that. I mean, I could see value both at offensive tackle and at defensive end. It really just depends on who's there when it's our pick.
And that's the thing. It seems like every year we're like, okay, well, it's probably going to be one of these three guys that are going to be here, and everybody's picking who they think they're going to take, and then somebody makes a crazy move ahead of them, and guys just start falling, like domino effect. And I think that happened. A lot of people, nobody expected DJ Moore to be on the board last year. And, I was saying on one of our shows last year before the draft, I was saying I don't think he's going to go as high as a lot of people are saying. I still thought somebody would take him just ahead of us. But when it came to 24, I was live on the show, and I said, this is DJ Moore. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They spent, all this time, working with him, private workouts, bringing him in, doing this, talking with him, and you heard nothing but big things coming out of Panthers.com site about him. I thought it was pretty clear. But, I'm hoping this year, you just got to stick to the trenches. Can't say it enough. So,
that's where you can mask a lot of deficiencies if you're good up front. If Dave Gettleman had one good philosophy, it was hog mollies win football games. He's right about that.
Yeah.
He maybe didn't always pick the best guys for the job. He maybe got too cheap with certain guys, but the philosophy is right. I still think you win modern football games, and I think the Super Bowl proved it in spades. If you can get after the passer and protect your own passer, you're going to win, period.
Yeah. And I swear, speaking of that, you said Super Bowl, remind me of the Rams. It just seems like they're loading up again another offseason, doesn't it? I mean, I say loading up, but, the names they're bringing back in again. It's pretty crazy. But it sounds like once the player goes in there and talks to Sean McVay that they don't leave. They don't want to leave, which I could see that. I mean, he seems like, he's young. He's a cool guy. He probably understands a lot of things at this point. So, and hell, they went to a Super Bowl. That always helps, right?
Well, what really helps them is having a starting quarterback on a rookie salary. I mean, that's the and that's what helps a lot of teams nowadays.
Well, they got Blake Bortles now, Eric. So it's all good, baby.
The savior has arrived. Oh my God.
Yeah, they'll sign Matt Khalil next. So.
Oh geez, man. I mean, whatever. But it's one of those things where, they've got the salary cap to deal with it now, but kind of like when you look at the Saints and people are like, how do the Saints afford this stuff? Well, they don't. If you look at their salary cap outlays for the next 1, 2, 3 seasons, a lot of people's heads are going to roll because they're not going. They can't keep them. They're over the cap already for the first 2 or 3 years. It seems like so.
Yeah, that's just it, dude. That's what I keep seeing everybody, saying, quote, like mainly on Twitter and stuff. Everybody's saying, oh well, let's get such and such. I know money's tight, but the Saints always seem to find a way, so we should be able to too. And I'm like, okay, come next season at this time next year, you're not gonna want, like, when you see what happens there, you're gonna be glad we didn't make some of those moves because they got to pay Drew Brees $40 million next year.
Yep, get the paper bags out, man.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna snowball quick. They're going for win now, and don't get me wrong, I get it. You got Drew Brees. Your team has been hot for the last 2 years in the playoffs, and arguably could have been in the Super Bowl both years. Didn't make it. I'm glad. Don't get me wrong, but
couldn't happen to a nicer guy,
right? But they were a strong team, and I get trying to win it right now where you have Drew Brees and you have that confirmation under center. And if you get a Super Bowl, let me ask you this: if the Panthers could put it, if you said you could go in debt like they are right now, and you could guarantee, well, you can't guarantee a Super Bowl, but if you felt strongly that you could get a Super Bowl by doing that and risking the next 3 years cap wise and being in that situation, would it be worth a Super Bowl to you to do that?
You do it.
Exactly. So that's my view on the thing too. If you can tell me, similar to the Rams, that's what they're doing with Jared Goff on the contract you just mentioned. They're selling out now while they have it cheap, and they can spend money elsewhere and put pieces around on both sides. They're doing that to try to go ahead and get that Super Bowl title while they can. If you're telling me you can do that and risk a couple years of downfall, give me that Super Bowl title.
Yeah, the thing that's going to really hurt the Saints, though, as opposed to other teams that go into win now mode like that, for most teams, it's a quarterback. And it's like, all right, we got a rookie quarterback that we like coming off his rookie deal. Now we got to sign him to a big contract.
Yeah.
That's one player. The Saints have the problem that they have so many great players at other positions
Michael
on
Thomas.
their rookie deals right now. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Marcus Lattimore. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They are going to have to shed franchise-level talents because they're not going to have any resources to pay them with. And that's when it gets tough. You're going to, like, we just saw Ingram walk away. He's just the first domino to fall.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be way more important dominoes that are going to fall for them.
And he didn't even end up being that expensive.
Nope.
They ended up paying him like $2 million more a year than what the Saints wanted to keep him out per reports early on anyway. I think the Saints had him last year around like $3.5 million, and reports were coming out that they wanted to keep him at that and extend him per season. And then he signed for like $5 million. And you have to think he wanted to stay in New Orleans, right? I mean, I would think he wanted to.
I would say, you know, what's greater? I think he stands to make more money down the road by going to Baltimore than he does staying in New Orleans.
Well,
Only
yeah,
because he has to share that spotlight.
right? Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, he'll be the guy in Baltimore, and he's gonna push people around up there.
That's a perfect fit.
He's my fantasy guy. Like, he's the one I'm going to be targeting in just about every league this year. I think he's the perfect fit in Baltimore, and him with Lamar Jackson, that's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah, that's a perfect fit for him. Physicality up there in Baltimore. Jordan Caton on Facebook Live saying they should draft Zion to play left tackle. Could be better than what they got. Well, we're gonna have to get him. Yeah, we're gonna. He might not blow out a cleat. I don't know. He can dig into the ground with that. He might have to tape him up real good. Most linemen do anyway.
Oh yeah, we better give him diamond tip cleats or something, man. After what we saw in that Carolina Duke game, man. I would love to see Zion Williamson on a football field anywhere. Put him in whatever position you want. I would love to see what happens with that.
Yeah, that could be fun to watch. Hugo on YouTube Live saying Sweat, Burns, Gary, or Farrell at 16. I hope you don't have to make that choice, right?
Oh yeah, but I would say Sweat all day and twice on Thursdays.
Man, he had a freak of a combine too. A lot of good. Again, there's always a lot of nice surprises at the combine. It seems. But
yeah, I think it's pretty special though when you're talking about a guy that can go a 4.4 at that size.
That's ridiculous. But
that's special.
Yeah. But you kind of mentioned it earlier. We were hitting on the nickel spot or the nickel style defense in the NFL these days, and that's one spot the Panthers obviously let go of Captain Munnerlyn. And you got Ross Cockrell coming in, and a lot of people still aren't talking about this guy, and I don't understand. Like, I don't know if I'm missing something. Like, I feel like he's going to come in. He could still come in and compete for that number 2 spot with Dante Jackson. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I still feel like this is a guy who is going to come in, and they're going to look at him as being the main nickel option. That's where I would see him excelling at. And if he comes in, I mean, don't get me wrong, Dante Jackson could play really well there as well. And I still think it might be a spot they look at in the draft potentially, maybe later in the later rounds. But that's also a kind of key spot in the defense you got to look at this year, and as well as we've already talked about it a little bit here and there, but the safety spot and how they address that outside of Eric Reed is going to be interesting because I don't think they're ready to just hand the reins over to Gaulden.
No, and it's I'm going to get ahead of myself here, but I don't think next season is our year, guys. I'm saying this now, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm saying this from we have a lot of needs, a lot of starters that we still need to fill, and we're done basically with free agency. And there's only so many picks in the draft, and the likelihood of getting 3 starters in the draft, I mean, that's a dream draft. If you come out with 3 first-year starters,
Yeah,
in the draft, that's an incredible draft.
that's what turned the Saints team around.
Yep, that's what it's going to take. And because we do need a starting safety, we do need a starting defensive end, and you could argue that we do need a starting offensive tackle. So it's a lot of needs to fill, and I would love to see it. I mean, if I'm being honest though, a healthy Cam behind a great offensive line with some of the weapons we've got,
Yeah,
we may be able to outshoot everybody. But as far as the way we usually like to do things, it may be another year beyond this year before we're talking Super Bowl aspirations again, just because we need some time to rebuild. We've lost a lot of veteran leadership, and that can't be understated. We're replacing, 4 out of 6 captains, I think. Is that right?
You got, let's see, Julius Peppers, Thomas Davis,
Khalil.
Yeah, Khalil. I don't. Munnerlyn wasn't a captain.
Munnerlyn was a captain.
Was he?
Yes, he was.
Oh, there you go. That's 4.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of turnover there.
It's a lot.
Munnerlyn, I'm still not as concerned about though. But yeah, no. Thomas Davis, Ron Khalil, Julius Peppers. Those are 3 big names in Carolina Panthers.
Thomas Davis might as well be 3 captains.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I wish him nothing but the best in LA.
Yeah, I do too. It's gonna hurt to watch him play for somebody else, but I get it. I mean, I know why the team didn't re-sign him, and I know why he still wants to play. So I think it's amicable. I think when he's ready to stop playing, he'll come back here. We'll give him the heroes treatment, and all will be well. But it's gonna be weird to see him play for somebody else next year.
Eric, what do you think about Cam Newton going vegan, buddy?
Well, right now, my plan for tomorrow. I have a day off tomorrow. My plan for tomorrow is to go to Costco and buy about 60 pounds of raw meat that's gonna go in a big old smoker. So that's what I think about veganism.
I was gonna say, the Piggly Wiggly down here has 69-cent Boston butts that I'm gonna grab one of for this week. Per pound, 69 cents per pound, obviously. Boston butts, yeah, it's damn good. So I'm definitely gonna grab that. Well, I won't be doing it this weekend. I'm going out of town this weekend, but I'm gonna grab it this week while it's on sale and throw it on my smoker.
Yep.
But more power to Cam. The dude is always trying to stay ahead of the curve as far as keeping his body into shape. And I really hope I'm loving the inside look of these vlogs. By the way, I don't know about you, but
me too.
I can only hope that his shoulder rehab is going as well as they're showing and talking about it going. And I don't know. I'm gonna be on pins and needles all year next year anyway, waiting for soreness to start popping up again like it did last year. But I really hope he can get it back to Cam form because he is something special when he can sling that ball downfield. I mean, it's so much fun to watch, and a lot of people take for granted how lucky we are to actually have somebody that's talented, and it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame.
And the thing that he never gets credit for amongst his haters is the thing that I think there's more proof in the world of. His level of commitment to his craft is absolutely up in the stars, and he never gets credit for that amongst the Roll Tide crowd and whomever else. But it's he really does care, and you can't say that he's not trying everything that he possibly can do to be 100% ready for next season, and that he wasn't the same thing last year. I remember him talking in one of his vlogs about what he did during last season to try to keep his arm basically held on.
Yep.
I mean, he was trying everything that there was. Now, yeah, he has all the resources monetarily that one could ever need to do such a thing, but you still have to commit yourself. I mean, this man is clearly spending most of his waking hours getting himself right. And he doesn't have to do that right now in the off season. This should be his time off, but he's still very devoted to it. So I will never understand. I mean, there are just people that flat out don't like Cam Newton, and we know what that's all about.
Yep.
But when presented with proof I would hope that a neutral eye would look and say, okay, this man is committed to his craft and he wants to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I don't see how you can look at him and not say that either. Michael Jones on YouTube Live asking us to talk about Greg Olson, and I don't really know. Oh, I guess he's talking about the broadcast, and I actually did have that in my notes. That was brought up last week. The rumors got stirred up that he had accepted the Monday Night Football gig, I think is what it was, and was going to get paid and go do that instead, was the report coming out. And I think that was by Sheena. And look, Sheena's typically on her game as far as beat writing for the Panthers. I know she covers several sports in the Charlotte, Carolina area, and she's normally on top of her game. But that report came out to be false. It turned out, but I didn't see this happening anyway when it was originally brought up the week before that. I think he wants to play one more year. The Monday Night Football gig is a tough one to. I mean, that's a tough spot to give, to pass up when it's open. But Greg Olson has a career in broadcasting when he leaves the Carolina Panthers. Like, there's no question about that. So
he's done enough gigs already that even if he has to wait a few years for a spot to open up, he's 100% on the call list. So I don't think there's a rush on his part. I really think he probably is going to want to spend, regardless of what people think, he's probably going to want to spend a couple years just not in football for a little bit. Maybe watch his kids grow up a little bit,
Yeah.
But as far as next season goes, I am entering this offseason as if we're not going to have Greg Olson. Not because I don't think he's going to be on the roster and slotted as our starting tight end, but just because I just don't know that his foot's going to hold up, man.
Dude, I said when the injury happened originally, I said this is the worst possible injury he could have, or you can have, period, in sports really at all, basketball, football, it doesn't matter, but in football, planning as a tight end, having to cut, this was the worst possible injury, and it has done nothing but bug him since. Now, last year, it seemed like he was on a good roll, and then out of nowhere, it popped up. But, this is something that just seems like it's always going to be reoccurring. I hope he goes to the next, he has a good rehab this offseason and all this stuff, and he goes into next season as well and stays healthy, obviously. But, that one definitely worries me, but I like the idea of him and Ian Thomas. Pat Coltrane tuning in, Baby Bubba on YouTube Live. What's up, buddy? Appreciate the love. Y'all be sure to go check him out on YouTube. Subscribe to him if you haven't. This dude is great. I watch his stuff all the time. He's funny as hell, and he speaks his mind on what he wants to hear. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel up there on YouTube, and like and follow us right there on Facebook and Twitter, Periscope, all that jazz. But yeah, if he can stay healthy and those two tight end sets they're talking about running more of potentially next year, that could be fun. Ian Thomas really came into his own at the end of the season.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad that we do have Ian Thomas because I do think he has a bright future at tight end in the NFL. I wish we kind of had a better third option at tight end just because I think they're going to be needed. But I do think Ian Thomas has a future in the NFL as a potential.
It's Chris Manhurst, baby.
Oh, Chris
Manhurst. You didn't see that touchdown against the Saints?
That one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, dude, he's the future GOAT at tight end. What you talking about?
Oh, just like Dante Rosario and Jeff King before him.
Oh yeah, the great game-winning touchdown against the Chargers. Yeah, all that jazz.
And honestly, I will never forget that moment for whatever strange reason, but I will always remember it.
It's a classic.
It is a classic, but. Yeah, I mean, I like Ian Thomas. I obviously like Greg Olson. I just don't know if I can count on him. I can absolutely understand why, if he wants to play, he absolutely gets to play. But I think they have to prepare as if in any given week he won't be available.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with him being on the roster, but I do think that the team knows and are aware that you have to plan as if he might get injured again at any moment.
Fair enough. I think that's fair to ask. I mean, yeah.
That's how you should address every position, right?
Yeah, go into it. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, that's every time we go into start training camp and OTAs and stuff, and we're talking about looking ahead towards the season. I'm always emphasizing healthy, if healthy. I just want everybody healthy coming out of preseason and all that.
Healthy team usually wins the Super Bowl. There's not a lot of exceptions to that.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about, how the Falcons were entering week 1 of the season last year as the healthiest team in the NFL, and that ended real quick.
Very fast.
So hope that doesn't happen to us. I don't want it to happen to any player, period, obviously. But
That Vontae's perfect.
yeah, and how ironic is that?
Yeah, oh my God, it's a very rare,
But now they're boys.
One team in the NFL, it makes sense for, right?
Get out of here! If you headhunt me, we ain't boys. I don't give a damn what team you're on. My team. If you're lining up beside me, no, I'm letting that man through, and he's hitting your ass. Nope, not me. Yeah. Not today. Yep. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, Erik, I think that's pretty much it for tonight's show, dude. Thank you for jumping on. Tell these guys where they can find you at. These ladies and gentlemen. Tell them where they can find you at with Cat Scratch Reader and all the stuff y'all are doing. Y'all been killing it. I know Billy's doing a lot of his analysis and stuff along with y'all right now. So give them all the plugs you can, buddy.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me personally on Twitter at Tater596. That's at TATER596. And you can follow Cat Scratch Reader on Twitter at Cat Scratch Reader, but there's no E before the last R because there are too many characters in that. So at Cat Scratch Reader without the ER. And if you go there, you can see all the people that we talked about across the broadcast. Their Twitter handles are pinned to the top of the page. And obviously, you can look at our website, www.catscratchreader.com.
Yep. And it's a good one. You can find a lot of good stuff up there.
It is a good one. Lots of good player evaluations right now from Billy Marshall if you're into the draft.
Definitely, yeah. That's one thing you need to. Billy's analysis is really solid. I always look forward to his stuff. I'm actually hoping he does one on the local talent Nate Harvey, who now has to enter the draft after some BS with the NCAA, but very raw talent at defensive end despite a big year here last year. Yep. But maybe he'll get to that. But Erik, again, thanks for joining. We'll have to, we'll get you back on again sometime in this off season again, maybe right before training camp. We'll see how the draft goes. Maybe right after the draft or before the draft. We'll keep in touch. It's always a good time, man, breaking down and seeing these rebuilds happen at certain places.
Yeah, sounds great, Trip. Thanks for having me on tonight, man. It was a good time.
Absolutely, and y'all be sure to go ahead and like and follow if you haven't already on your sites. You can also find the full show in the podcast form in the next couple of days. I'll be posting when that goes live. It'll be on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, all of that, Spotify, if I didn't say it already. But thank y'all for tuning in. I'm Trip Morgan for Panther Source. Y'all keep pounding.